This is 101 plus 1 Red Flag Days, book 1 of 10, contained in my already published book, Daily Red Flag Jokes, available on dailyredflagjokes.com. I hope you enjoy it. Okay. It may be a red flag when the attendance to your church has fallen from 500 to 5, and 3 of them are God. It may be a red flag when the lion's share in a company that you have dumped an obscene amount of money into turns out to be no larger than a kitty cat. It may be a red flag when the mayor and his family push past you in line at the homeless shelter. It may be a red flag when your American child is being taught English as a second language. It may be a red flag when the price of gas goes up $1 a gallon while you're still in line trying to prepay. It may be a red flag when a guy robs 5 banks and says, I just wanted to get in on this going green thing. It may be a red flag when a wealthy man dies and leaves his crackhead nephew a pawn shop. It may be a red flag when Sister Lovejoy asks you to come over to fix a faucet and meet you at the door with a martini in each hand. It may be a red flag when the President Obama invites the whiz of the KKK over for a beer. It may be a red flag when your girlfriend's uncles, brothers, wives, dads, bosses, college buddies, best friends, daughters, 2-day-old twins were just born when this sentence began. May be a red flag when a 6th grade student is old enough to vote. May be a red flag when your house looks better after the tornado hit it. It may be a red flag when your wife's feet are so rough that you thought she came to bed with her shoes on. It may be a red flag when a vacuum cleaner salesman tells you that his product recycles dirt. It may be a red flag when your pastor's foot, excuse me, it may be a red flag when your pastor's car is a foot longer than the church bus. It may be a red flag when horse manure is sold as personal human repellent. It may be a red flag when your doctor and his staff can't stop laughing during your physical exam. It may be a red flag when your new job is filling a very sudden opening for a bulletproof vest tester. It may be a red flag when a lawyer is flying a cardboard sign in front of the courthouse that says, "We'll lie for money." It may be a red flag when a bumper sticker reads, my third grader was awarded the third grade's Bully of the Year trophy 3 years in a row. It may be a red flag when you have been court ordered to register your mouth as a lethal weapon. It may be a red flag when your church takes up so many offerings that you take up one for yourself and nobody notices. It may be a red flag when your doctor's been looking for you for 2 days to tell you that you only have 48 hours to live. It may be a red flag when your financial advisor is ahead of you in the checkout line using a food stamp card. Oh, excuse me, using your food stamp card. That's bad. It may be a red flag when your turn comes in playing Russian roulette. They toss you an Uzi. It may be a red flag when a policeman only puts his bulletproof vest on after his kids get home. It may be a red flag when the queen bee orders the drones to teach her workers a new work song entitled, I got my mind on my honey and my honey on my mind. It may be a red flag when a butcher says it's still moving because you want it fresh. It may be a red flag when Jesus says, my sheep will wait, feed your kids. It may be a red flag when number one on a mortician's list of instructions is remove all signs of life. It may be a red flag when a convenience store has a cover charge. It may be a red flag when a really rough bar insists on a 2 mugging minimum. It may be a red flag when the International House of Pancakes gangsters has a slippery motto of syrup in and butter out. It may be a red flag when your neighbor that is always fighting with her husband asks if she may borrow a cup of poison. It may be a red flag when none of the people at your funeral are concerned about where you went. They just glad you did. Maybe a red flag when I pity the fool Baptist church members don't want to go to heaven because they're all afraid to fly. Maybe a red flag when they change the name of the dollar store to the dollar store. You're right. It may be a red flag when you take your baby into a restroom marked family and find a guy, his 2 sons, and wife sitting on the floor playing Monopoly. It may be a red flag when a restaurant restroom has a sign that says, optional washing of hands by employees is mandatory. It may be a red flag when a police department SWAT team's response time to a crime in progress is measured on a calendar. It may be a red flag when a waitress's customers think that tip is the way that they should walk when leaving her table without one. It may be a red flag when a bank teller has not returned after 3 days from a 1-hour lunch. May be a red flag when your pastor's diamond ring is so big that they issue you a pair of really dark glasses and a seeing eye dog at the door. May be a red flag when the driver in your carpool rolls up to a traffic signal and asks you what color it is. May be a red flag when the raisins in your oatmeal just crawled in a minute ago. May be a red flag when a man pleads not guilty to a charge of indecent exposure for mooning the Pope because he says it was a wardrobe malfunction. May be a red flag when the United States decides to import chickens from Mexico and the Republicans adopt it as their next presidential campaign slogan, some pot in every chicken. Maybe a red flag when you hear a train going by right outside your house and there's no track for miles. It may be a red flag when instead of license, registration, and proof of insurance, the state trooper asks you for dinner and a movie. Maybe a red flag when the youngest member of your church's youth group is on a pension. Maybe a red flag when your solid gold watch anniversary gift has turned the whole left side of your wife's body green. Maybe a red flag when the family of dust bunnies under your bed goes back 3 generations. Oh, and in reference to my one tooth, I came out of this with a red flag. It may be a red flag when you bite into an apple and only leave 1 tooth mark. It may be a red flag when you can't understand why you failed a drug test that you stayed up all night studying for. It may be a red flag when your feet are so rough that they strike sparks on asphalt. Let's do this again. It may be a red flag when your feet are so rough that they strike sparks on asphalt that can be seen from space. A few tongue twisters in here. Maybe a red flag when a boxer is so cross-eyed that he knocked out some dude in the front row. Maybe a red flag when your wino cousin stole your kid's bicycle, forgot where he got it, and tried to sell it to you. Maybe a red flag when instead of Mount Hope, everybody start calling your church Mount Dope. Maybe a red flag when after an officer tests his state-of-the-art verbal breathalyzer, it screams, "You have the right to remain silent." It may be a red flag when you avoid bridges with load limits while your mother-in-law is in the car. It may be a red flag when 2012, being leap year, will be succeeded by the next year with February having only 27 days, thereby instituting the very first cheap year. Maybe a red flag when you lose 100 pounds and your wife doesn't rest until she finds every one of them. It may be a red flag when a three-legged horse is the odds-on favorite in the Kentucky Derby. Maybe a red flag when your house is so dirty that the picture on your bottle of Mr. Clean joined the Witness Relocation Program. Maybe a red flag when you find out that the name of your church has been changed from Ebenezer Baptist Church to a bunch of old geezers Baptist Church. Maybe a red flag when you rush your pet rock to the emergency room because it isn't breathing. Maybe a red flag when you are so old that you refuse to die and the ugly police come and take you away. It may be a red flag when your flight has been diverted from Poughkeepsie to Paris with the captain and crew dressed in orange jumpsuits with county jail stenciled on them. It may be a red flag when a woman's dress is so tight that you flinch every time she moves from fear of an explosion. It may be a red flag when your wife puts you on America's top 10 most unwanted list. It may be a red flag when you are so short that you have to jump on a trampoline to high-five Emmanuel Lewis. It may be a red flag when your life is such a mess that Jesus gives you a referral. It may be a red flag when you continue to suppress your children's creativity even though God made them smarter than you. It may be a red flag when you think that mountain oysters are harvested from high altitude oceans. It may be a red flag when Janet Jackson was told that her recent experience with stage fright was probably only a mild case of wardrobe malfunction phobia. Maybe a red flag when after handing over your billfold to a mugger, he looks at you, shakes his head, and gives you some of his money. It may be a red flag immediately after hearing your confession, your priest joins the Witness Relocation Program. It may be a red flag when your tires are so thin that you can see the fix-a-flat inside. It may be a red flag when you are asked to remove your mask at the Halloween party but aren't wearing one. It may be a red flag when your pastor keeps saying that he's going to close but never does. It may be a red flag when you go to a masquerade party disguised as your identical twin. It may be a red flag when Elvis and Michael are spotted at a Kiss concert with Ray and Gary. It may be a red flag when someone pops you in the eye and tells you how good it's going to feel when it stops hurting. It may be a red flag when a guy looks around in hell and don't see nobody he knows. May be a red flag when you are breaking 2 commandments at the same time by killing me with your lies. Maybe a red flag when roaches are having their own million-man march in the cafeteria. Maybe a red flag when you walk into church with your favorite red and white outfit on. They hand you a blue program and everybody stands up and salutes. Maybe a red flag when you see a deer dressed in camouflage wearing an orange cap and driving a Jeep with a man strapped to the hood. Maybe a red flag when your fitness instructor is so fat that a double meat whopper looks like a nickel in his hand. Maybe a red flag when your dentist's teeth look like a miniature replica of Stonehenge. His and mine both. Maybe a red flag, instead of saying good morning back to you, the Walmart greeter says, yeah, right. Maybe a red flag when you receive an invitation to a swingers party from your marriage counselor. It may be a red flag when the cement in your driveway is so thin that the potato chip factory next door wants to know your secret. It may be a red flag when a woman tells you that the 2 bullet holes in her back came from when her boyfriend accidentally shot her. 2 bullet holes. It may be a red flag when you discover that donkeys can talk without God's empowerment. It may be a red flag when everybody's comment on your post on Facebook is just one word. Zzz. It may be a red flag when the lady in the white uniform refuses to sign you up for your military benefits at the veterinarian's office. It may be a red flag when you see a U-Haul truck leading a funeral procession. It may be a red flag when a photography professor has his students to save all their burned out light bulbs to build a dark room. Maybe a red flag when your CPA counts on his fingers and uses a fat pencil. Maybe a red flag when the guy that portrayed Jesus in the Easter play hosted a church yard sale and ran off with all the money. Maybe a red flag when I'm so glad when somebody does something silly so I can put it in the red flag lineup. It may be a red flag when none of these 101 plus 1 red flags have made you smile, have made you frown, or most importantly, have made you think. This is Colorado Banner. Thank you.